Dude, I really appreciate this. Thank you. So
Oh no, I mean, I was watching your streams back on Wheel of Time days, so
I was watching yours. I was watching you back with Wheel of Time and the other shit too. You know what I mean? And
yeah, there was like a close-knit community back then. There wasn't many people that were.
I know.
You had all the people that were just like open mouth crying faces throughout the entire series, but if you're actually on about anyone that talked about it, no, it wasn't many.
Well, and it's like there's a bunch of these dudes, like I just met them on Twitter, or they pinged me in a comment section, and they had like 16 or 100 followers, and now they're climbing, and it's like a couple got monetized, and it's just wild to see how we're all kind of like, helping each other climb the ladder of YouTube exploitation, So
3 hours later.
All right, you want me to ask you some Tolkien questions,
please,
my friend?
Yeah.
All right. So I got 5 questions. You answer them however you want. There's no trick questions that are not lore questions. It has to do with your personal experience with Tolkien if you've watched my Fire of Fandom videos. First question, and again, thank you for today. This was being fun, dude. I like the free association, fast thinking thing. That's really fun to do, dude.
Yeah, I do that a lot with stuff.
All right, I'm going to ask you the first question. Thank you again for doing this. I'll jump off screen, and here we go.
For me, it would have been. I used to go to the cinema a lot with my dad. Sort of every weekend, he'd look on the newspaper for various different reviews, and we always had like a rule that if they said it was good, then it'd probably be awful. And if they reviewed it and it was awful, it'd probably be good. And I think one of the few exceptions was probably Lord of the Rings. I can't remember now. But yeah, it would have been the movies first, and it was sort of a father-son visit. I'm not sure how old I was at the time. I think with especially classic literature, there's a message which you don't get now. And coming from more of a Wheel of Time area, there's a lot of association between the two. Wheel of Time was inspired by it, so you can understand why it is. But there's sort of messages that underpin the characters, which are almost entirely gone from culture as a whole now. Things like duty, the idea that you're born to do something and you should do something because you're meant to, and it's the right thing to do no matter what it is. A lot of things now are sort of you do what you want rather than what you should. And so there's all of these kind of morals and messages which they're kind of passed down from generation to generation via their stories. And it's one of the issues with changing them in that those messages can be lost. They can either be deliberately destroyed or you just don't understand what you're messing with. And so I think not just Tolkien, but kind of any IP as a whole, it was created by the author for a reason as a whole piece to pass on something. Obviously, things from a previous time will have different messages, and I'm not someone that thinks that everything improves over time and that just because something's more modern, it's better. I think there's a lot of things we can learn from the past and from our ancestors, our heritage, our culture, and that is passed down through things like the works of Tolkien and other stories and novels. I don't know whether this is a really basic answer or not, but it is going to be Aragorn, not just because he's a badass at the end of the day, but there's more to him than that. This is a guy who is very similar to Lan in Wheel of Time. I don't actually know if one was inspired by the other one or not, but there's so many parallels between them. They were both born to royalty. They're not magic. They didn't get something because somebody else gave it to them. Their powers were earned over time. Their skill was developed because they practiced it, because they committed. And both of them have a duty which they don't want to do, but inevitably end up carrying out because they realized it was the right thing to do. And in the meantime, they served other people. It wasn't like they just wasted their time. They didn't hang around and do things. While they were training, they went out and served the people who should be beneath them because they are royalty at the end of the day. And as I've said before with messages passed down, one of the ideas of the monarchy used to be that, yes, you had this kind of advantage, you had all these resources, but you were there to serve the people, and you gave your life to serve the others, and in return you were rewarded. And I think there's something positive about that message. There is one part of Aragorn I don't like, though, and that is his marriage to Arwen. I do not think it is in any way moral, shape, or form to make somebody give up their immortal life just so they can love you for a bit. Never liked it. I think it's a very interesting idea to play around with, but however you spin it, I don't think giving up immortality is worth the price of getting married. I think, obviously, the most faithful adaptation would always be the books. But when it comes to the movies, you've got the comments of Peter Jackson that, I don't want to put myself into this world. This will come... I shouldn't put my own opinions in this world, but it's my duty to put Tolkien's opinions in it. So I think that's about, when it's honest, about as close as you can get to a faithful adaptation as you want. Because you're always going to have to change stuff, people are always going to be unhappy, and I think basically everyone accepts that. What they want is not only the voiced intention to do it, but also to carry on and do it. Adaptations in general, I don't think are very good. I think you could probably count on your one hand how many really good adaptations have actually been done by anything. And the ones where immediately spring to mind for me, there's a YouTube video of a Wheel of Time adaptation. It was done by the fans. It was done by people essentially cosplaying, because they created it because they loved it and they really wanted to contribute to this universe. It wasn't done for money. The moment you do it for money, and people get involved who are now not doing it because they love what it is, but because they want to make money, or they want to create another universe, or they want to get their own egos in it, then it's an entirely different dynamic, and I think that leads to the destruction of adaptations as a whole. And you only have to look at basically every gay movie ever made to see that most adaptations are awful. So I think when it comes to Lord of the Rings, everyone should be very grateful that they got the original trilogy that they did, and that they're so loved by people, because it's very rare. When it comes to Amazon in general, their TV shows are very mixed. On the one hand, you've got how they handled Wheel of Time, completely and utterly destroying something where they had all of the source material there, and that means I'm not going to trust you the next time they do it. But on the other, they had things like Reacher and The Terminal List, both of which were from books as well, and some of the times they had the authors involved, and they were not only good series, but similar to the books. And then you've got everything that we found out about the Rings of Power. It seems very similar to Wheel of Time, not just from its marketing strategy, which seems focused more on getting various people to say how amazing it is, rather than just showing people. I always think if you're trustworthy, if you believe in your vision and your product, you can just show it to people, put it forwards, and you don't need all the extra fluff to prove it to anybody. But instead, Amazon's been very secretive, and everything they say, the good things just seem like lip service, and what they're saying seems very different than what they are showing people. Now, I'm not a mega Tolkien person who can reel off the lore to you at a moment's notice, but even just looking at it, this isn't what I know from Lord of the Rings and the original trilogy. It's not from what I've read in the book so far. And so to me, what this seems to be is just the Wheel of Time treatment. With that, they threw out the lore and burnt it and proved they didn't care about it. And with this, they deliberately went to an area where they didn't have any of the lore. Why? Because they didn't want it. They went to an area that they thought that they wanted told, rather than one that already was. That means that you think your ego is better than Tolkien, that you can do a better job than Tolkien. You can write the book that he never wrote. Well, maybe he didn't write it for a reason. Maybe he didn't write it because he thought it wasn't important, or he just didn't want to expand on that area. And yet, you think that you can do that. And especially now where sort of modern ideas and modern principles are being put into there, that isn't Tolkien. That is actually antithetical to these classic works. And as I've said before in one of the previous answers, it's the messaging and the sort of tradition and the heritage that comes from these works which I find valuable. And instead, you want to insinuate yourself in that, to put your messages onto it, so that you can not only get the reflected glory, but then to other people, pass down your beliefs and your opinions as if they're equal to what came before. It seems all lazy and cheap and just as a way of not subverting expectations, but subverting somebody else's work for your own personal gain. And for all that to be wrapped up in the idea that this is stars in the sky and it's what he would have wanted. No, because we know what you've changed already. We know the details you've changed. And if he'd wanted them to be like that, he would have written them that way in the first place. So we already know you're lying, and that means I can't trust you with anything else.
Has ever. This is Salty Texas Sea. I am Corey DB. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you've seen and heard, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. That way you know, and we have things like live streams, which we are going to be doing every Tuesday evening. Take care. I hope you're having a great 2022.